There were bells on the hill, but I never heard them.
Hi, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Netflix and Phil. And with me today, star of stage and television screens, and also a writer, is an improviser in LA, Amanda Blake Davis. Give her a round of applause.
Hi!
Hi.
Ow, 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 ow. What an introduction. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. My pleasure. Well, I just wanted to get right into it. You and I, we have awareness of each other, and Jay Suko invited us to do like virtual improv during like the height of the pandemic, and we got to play a little bit then. But I just wanted to take this opportunity actually just to get to know you a little better and find out some cool things about you, because you have done some very cool things and continue to do so.
Thank you. Can I tell you
Yes.
that scene that we did with Jay gets referenced, I think, so often to me. Like somebody I see out and about is always like, when they introduce me, they're like, she would improvise on the, like, during the pandemic online. And I'm always like, that's so bananas that you do one thing in such a small window of time. And then, I don't know. It's very funny to me, though.
It's part of your legacy now.
It is. That's my legacy. Thank you, Jay Suko.
Thank you, Jay. Since we're on the topic, let's talk about improv. And I'll preface it by saying, many years ago, I was living in LA, and then Vegas is home, and I moved here. And at the time I moved home, you were here.
Yeah.
And you were on the main stage, Second City at the Flamingo. Do I have that correct?
That is correct. We weren't actually the main stage of the, like, not the main showroom
Right.
of the Flamingo, but we were on a stage in the.
Right. Because if you compare it to today, right now, RuPaul's Drag Race Live is on the main stage. I'm not sure what's in that stage that Second City was in, to be honest.
Yeah, I wonder what's there.
I think it's a burlesque show.
Sounds about right.
Does that track?
Yeah.
So that said, I don't know that I formally met you or we even chatted or anything like that, but I knew you were taking off. So if you can start with how you found improv, why are you passionate about it, and just give us a brief history about your relationship with it.
Yeah, I found improv. I mean, I knew of like, I knew it as like a warm up to like theater. Like growing up, I did theater from a very young age, and improv was the thing you did before you got to work on whatever show you were, whatever musical you were doing. It's like you would improvise to warm up. And then I moved to Chicago right after college, and all of a sudden realized, like, oh no, this is an art form unto itself. Like everything here is improv, and it's not just whose line is it anyway. It's like two people on stage for an hour just making stuff up, and my mind was blown. So I did the Second City, IO, Comedy Sports, like all the stuff I could do there in Chicago, all the while with like my sights set on Second City.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just kept honing the craft, doing the thing, living that dream. It was a wild time to be there, like at late 90s.
Yes.
Sort of like, I don't know, like everything was sort of like changing. The cusp of everything was like sort of changing. And by 2004, I had auditioned for Second City many times. And by 2004, I finally got hired as an understudy. And once I was touring with them, I toured for a few months, and then they offered me the Vegas stage. So I snapped it up.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And that's when I started taking classes here just before you returned to Chicago. And I want to get into some detail about that, because it was there you ended up on the Second City ETC stage, correct? And wrote several reviews.
Yeah.
Walk me through that, about your experience being on that stage in Chicago.
Oh, it was the best. It was truly a North Star for me when I moved to Chicago, and I didn't really know what I was walking into. I didn't quite know what Second City was, but somebody I had met before I graduated college was like, "You have to go to Chicago. You would be great at Second City." And I was like, "Thank you. I don't have a plan. That's great for me to like move somewhere and work towards something." And truly, when I saw a show there, I started crying. I was like, "I'm home. This is what I should be doing." So to get to the point where you were on a stage and making your living doing it, it was spectacular and hard. It's honestly, did you watch any of like the SNL documentaries that have come out for like the 50th anniversary?
The closest I've come to it is probably Saturday Night, the motion picture,
Okay.
but no documentaries to speak
No,
of.
there's like a 4-part docu-series that came out. It's very cool. They go through like the audition process in one, they go through like the writers in one, they talk about like the cowbell sketch for a whole episode. Very fun. But like when you watch the writers episode, you know, it's so taxing, it's so draining on your mental health. And like doing the Second City review is so like there's elements of that, but it's on such a different scale that allows you to become part of an ensemble, understand working with totally different personalities, all the while working during the day, putting new stuff in a show at night, getting audience like real time reactions, cutting stuff, adding stuff. It's just, I mean, I don't know that you'll ever have, like, that experience was so cool. It was so cool.
What great energy and amazing! And if I could give you a little bit of an accolade you received.
Oh, I'll take an accolade or two.
So my understanding is you received a Jeff Award for
I
being
did.
the best actress in, I believe it was called Studs Terkel's Not Working.
That's correct. It was
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was the 50th anniversary show,
Yeah,
like during Second City's 50th. And so like that was the show that we had running during that time. And it was all like so cool. It was so cool.
that
It
is
was
so
just the
awesome.
best.
And this really prepared you for your writing commitments after working on the ETC stage at Chicago. So, and I don't know if you can walk me through this or the genesis of it, but I understand you were a co-writer on 50 Shades the musical. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah, that happened right as I was sort of moving to LA.
Uh-huh.
So, Al Samuels, who is a longtime friend and produces Baby Wants Candy, I was a part of that group for so long. And they go out to Edinburgh Fringe Festival every year. And I think that they were in a place where they were like, we're doing baby shows out there, but we want to have like scripted musicals that we bring out there too. And so he was like, "Have you read the book?" And I was like, "Did I?" I devoured the book. So he's like, because we want to create a musical. So, you know, there were like 6 of us, I think, and none of us were in the same location. I think we were all in different cities or whatever, writing things, pitching ideas, and putting it together. I was never in the same city as that music. Like I traveled eventually I saw it here at the Kirk Douglas, and I traveled to Chicago one time to like get to actually see it when it was all said and done. But yeah, it was such an interesting, cool, zeitgeisty thing. It still plays. Like every once in a while, we'll get a contract because they're going to do it in Japan or do it in
Love this.
Germany or something.
Well, and taking from that, the musical itself, I got very excited about talking to you because you write for animation, which is something that I think, one, I don't understand how that works. So I was hoping you could
Yeah.
walk me
Oh,
through what is it like. You have several story by credits on the new Looney Tunes series.
yeah, that I had to go back because we're going back a decade. So I went into my old docs to be like, what happened with that? A very good friend, somebody I've known through improv, through Second City, was hired as the showrunner for like the
Okay.
new Looney Tunes, and he was charged with staffing. So he was able to bring in a slew of people he knew. And at the time, he was like, "Look, I can get you in, but I would need to pair you with somebody." So, and he knew that I was friends with this guy that, you know, we knew of each other. I directed this kid in like a show at Second City. So he's like, would you guys write together? He ended up being my favorite. He's a very good friend now. We are we call each other writing partners, even though we haven't written anything together in the last 5 years. Great friend. But because he put us together, we ended up like sort of having this partnership and like sold a show together. Like we really, I was so fortunate that Matt put us together. But yeah, I mean, Matt basically like he put together a room, and then I guess he was given the task of like, here are a bunch of new characters that the Looney Tunes want to like focus on or bring to light. And then he kind of let us go away, pitch stuff together. Then we'd come back and pitch him ideas, and he would sort of zero in on one or two, and then we'd go away, come out with an outline. And then if those outlines were chosen, we'd have to like kind of go to script for it.
Wow.
Which is weird and wonderful. And
well, thank you for describing that, because I have just been very curious about the mechanics of that and how that works. And you're working with Warner Brothers characters who have been around forever. So another question I have for you is like, how much creative license are you allowed for something like that? That's a character that millions know and have understood for millennia.
yeah, there were certainly things that like we couldn't do, or like your parameters. And so
Yes.
I think Matt for sure wanted to probably push the envelope in ways and make it as funny as possible. There certainly were like parameters that like you were supposed to be working in, and I pulled up the list of what we pitched first.
Oh, I want to hear it.
Here's a fun one.
Okay.
Gene Clean, who I assume is like a cleaning genie.
Yes.
I don't know if that character ever made it. Gene Clean or Dirt So Good. This was when Bugs heads to his beloved comic book stack, only to find there's an empty space on the shelf. He turns to see the sparkling smile of Gene Clean, a handsome, overzealous, and unwelcome man terrorizing the town with his cleanliness. No need to thank me. I threw away those dusty old magazines. Bugs is furious.
Oh no. This is great. I love this idea.
It goes on. You don't need to hear the whole thing, but like the Dust Bugster, which actually did make it to like air, I think was one of our pitches early on.
It did actually, because I remember a segment titled that. So I watched a couple of episodes and love how vibrant it is. And Looney Tunes, I think, is a little more edgier than say Disney animation. So what a great playground to be in. So
yeah, it was really a neat like exercise to write for it in my head. I was like, that's not really my area, but in many ways it's like, oh, you're just heightening a game. You're just taking the character, here's what the character, here is his character. Now you just like put him in a situation, heighten, play out the game, and just keep heightening. So it did sort of like fall into an improviser's like background very nicely. But I certainly was not like, oh yeah, this is what like my wheelhouse really prepares me for this. But it's like it worked out.
well, that's good to know. Yeah, because animation is such a visual medium, and you're creating like. Do you have any? Did you have any input to like the gags, or did you have to flesh out perhaps any crazy stuff that happened to these characters themselves?
I mean, once we put it together, I think a lot of that stuff started happening like after, because, if you ever get a chance to talk to Matt Craig, he's probably got stories because he got to be there as it was like being visually storyboarded out and like
Okay.
and he did let us come in. He was so gracious. Like he let us come in one time and see the I forget what it's called, but it's just sort of the skeletal version of it, the animated skeletal version of what your thing is going to look like. And it was truly the coolest thing to be like, hey, that's our thing we wrote, like getting to sort of take shape. It was very, very cool. But yeah, I think like once, like any writing, unless you are Mike White, any writing that you do passes through so many hands, before it like actually gets to. So it's great that our name is on that there are probably 10 other people that had like a stake in like what happens and where it goes after we have like put it together.
Great. Well, thank you for giving insight into something that I was very unclear about and always often wondered about how that works.
Yeah, I mean it's very interesting too, because that was my only that's the only animation thing I've ever done.
Mm.
So to know, like, I mean, I have friends who work in animation now, and I imagine it's wildly different
Mm.
just because it's like, when it's not a 7 minute or 5 minute cartoon, there are hour-long narrative animation now. So it's like, it's all very different and unique.
I do want to segue off of this into your other writing commitment. You served as a staff writer for a show recently, and that was Work in Progress.
Yeah, what a show. What a show. I loved
So
that
I
show.
guess my main question is, so we talked Second City, we talked animation, and now staff writer on Work in Progress. Similarities, differences? What was the process like on a scripted television show?
It was bananas. I mean, the fact that I was even there was amazing. Abby has been a friend of mine for I met her in like probably 99, 2000 in Chicago. And so to get to be in the room and write a show that she sold was like, what is life? This is so cool. I was so excited to be there. The fact that she wanted that show in Chicago, and I think other shows could probably get bought and they'd say, yeah, we're moving to LA or we're doing it here or whatnot. Nope, she got to do it in Chicago, got to do it the way she wanted to, and that was very special to go back to, because I had been living in LA. So to go back and write in that writer's room in Chicago was great. And it was a really interesting, unique, again, I don't have anything to compare it to. That was my first
Hmm.
writer's room, and I knew a lot of the people in that room because of our time in Chicago. And so to be in a space where we're all like sort of like sharing our traumas, if you've watched the show, there's a lot of like
Yes.
mental health and like trauma
Yeah.
and stuff. So it was a very unique situation, and it was wild.
Now I guess this brings me to another question. What is like the timeline for something like that? I mean, are you locked in a room with other writers for several months, or does it take place longer than that? Or
Now, I don't know for sure,
mm,
but I think this, like, because we were only contracted to be there for 8 weeks,
I see.
which I
Okay.
think nowadays would be that like sort of like dirty little like mini writer's room word, and they were throwing that around where it's like everything is a mini writer's room
Oh,
where they're
okay.
only giving people a certain amount of time. I think um for that show, because it was deeply personal to
Yes.
Abby, I think what they wanted to do was basically get the bulk of the episodes written. And then there were 2 episodes they wanted to keep, to have Lily Wachowski and Abby write those alone. So we were only going to be there for 8 weeks, have 8 episodes written, and then they would fill out the last 2 episodes. And so we were there, and yes, Monday through Friday, we were there from like, I don't know, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., if I remember correctly. And
Yeah.
we all got like an hour break in the middle of the day to go do whatever we needed to do to like recenter ourselves and get ourselves like, mental health breaks. But yeah, it was a unique time. And then, of course, our writer's room ended the day that the world shut down for the pandemic. So the timing was like, we're done with this job, but also the world is ending.
Well, and you actually appear in one of the episodes, and what I appreciated about the show is that they don't dance around that. They actually incorporate the reality of that into the show, which I think so you see people in masks trying to navigate
Yeah,
that.
I think it was a very interesting thing because honestly, when the pandemic hit, I don't think that they knew whether we were going to get to do the second season. Everything
Right.
was so uncertain. So it was I think it was a full year before they were able to start. Maybe I don't know if I'm remembering that right, but like they did have to go back in and rewrite to, and I think it was the smart move to lean in to who Abby is and how that affected her. So yeah, there was a lot that had to be sort of like navigated in that way. But yeah, I think it was a full year before they could like go back in and do the thing that we wrote. So a very unique situation. Certain no momentum after that. Like if you're like, yeah, coming off a writer's room, back into the next. Ooh, no. Um, but it was, yeah, I love that show. If you can find it, to all of your viewers, your listeners, you have to find it because Showtime ripped it off their platform. So I think you have to buy it on like some.
You're absolutely correct. I found it on Amazon Prime.
There you go.
Why would Showtime not take it off their platform?
I don't know. Let's ask Showtime.
Let me get on the phone here.
Check in with them. I don't know if they were just not willing to. I don't know what the all totaled, what the residual fees or what you would have to
Oh,
pay to do it. If that just wasn't enough for them. Shocking though.
I left a message with an
Good.
administrative assistant, so
I don't make the decisions. I just know it. To me, it's a real shame that it can't just be accessible and mind you, if you have Showtime, you're already cutting half of the population. Not everybody has Showtime,
no.
but at least if you did have it and you could find that show when you needed it, to me, that was like the beauty of that show is that like
Right.
it was going to reach people and great. It exists. So if you don't find it today or tomorrow, in 5 years, you may come to it and be like, thank you, I needed that. Oh God, I needed to see that. I needed to hear that. I needed to know that somebody else went through that, And the fact that it just isn't as accessible makes me sad.
And I think that's kind of normal with these streaming platforms. Is like it used to be a la carte, and you could pick and choose anything, and it stayed there forever. But now they're pulling stuff. You mentioned
Yeah.
Showtime. I think Netflix is doing it too. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to get some higher up to come on the program and answer to this. Let us know. Is it a bottom line thing?
Well, let's not dwell on that. Speaking of appearances, you had a great appearance in that where a dog gets adopted out. I do want to talk about your other television appearances. So I watched an episode of Teachers, which was where you.
Let's talk about it. All of these, I mean, when I tell you my career has been built on the back of like connections that I made in Chicago, the people that I have worked with, that I have performed with, all of these opportunities are like directly related to like all of that stuff. So to anybody who's out there being like, I can't get an agent, I can't get a this, it's like, keep doing what you're doing. Like, and as long as you're still doing it, the connections you've made, the people that you have met and worked with, all that stuff, you're planting seeds. It comes back to you.
Yeah, building relationships, right? And
Yes.
yes, all that. I think making those connections are very important. And in that show, you got to play a teacher having an unusual conversation in a restroom, as I recall.
Yeah. On the toilet.
Yes.
Would it have been my first choice? No. Did they have to give me wardrobe underwear to put around my ankles? Yes.
This is great. Is that a thing? Is that like a
Yes.
wardrobe thing? Is that, oh my gosh.
Yeah, because they wanted like our underpants, like, so they gave us like something that we didn't have to,
The
use
great
our.
thing is you shared that
Yes.
stall with, I'm going to forget her name.
And so am I right now. I'm blanking on it. Quick Google search to.
Marla
Yes, Marla
Gibbs.
Gibbs. Yes.
Marla Gibbs. How great, though, as a parade of people going to that same restroom.
I mean, and all those, the teachers gals are all like
Right.
ladies I knew from Chicago. Like they were the Katydids, which was an improv team at IO. And they, what a gift. What a fucking gift to be like, to meet Ms. Gibbs.
I'm glad that you got to meet her.
Oh, yeah.
That's wonderful.
Very generous, nice, couldn't have been kinder. Yeah.
Wonderful. And then that's taking us to a more recent appearance in the resurrection of the television show Night Court.
Yes. God bless.
Where you're giving us great drunk mom I want to award you. I want to give you an award for your
I believe
drunk
she was called
mom.
Long Island Iced Tina
Yes.
by John Larroquette. Yeah. I'll tell you a fun story about that. They,
Please.
you're waiting in your little room. They put
Yes.
this wardrobe, makeup, and you're
Uh,
waiting in your room and whatnot. And a woman came to get me and like came to the door and was like, "Oh no." And I was like, "Oh, well, they did this. I didn't come, I didn't do it to myself." And then she's like, "Can you wait here for a second?" Brought some producer back with her and they were like, "Oh no. She looks way too young." And I was like, "Thank you."
yeah.
And
Good.
so
Yeah.
they brought me back to the makeup chair and had to gray me up and like make me look older. Like they basically what they did was like took off makeup and they were like, So and I was like, look, I didn't hire myself. You guys cast me. This is what I look like. But yes, that was an interesting moment in that thing where they're like, uh-oh. Oh no, we hired this young ingenue and she's supposed to be this old maid.
But
Uh
what a great scene, and you got to, as you mentioned, got to work opposite John Larroquette. And I go ahead, go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, who directed that episode was Joanna Kearns.
Oh,
Sweet
okay.
growing pains mama,
How
Joanna Kearns.
wonderful. And I love to celebrate when women are behind the camera. That's huge. And remind me what he was in the original iteration of
Yes.
Netflix.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
It was a fever dream. Like I grew up watching that show. The set is exactly like I mean, I think it's the exact same set. They just pulled it out of some warehouse.
I
So it really was like a weird 90s fever dream or 80s fever dream to be like in that space with like Growing Pains mom and John Larroquette. Like you're like, what is this? Yeah, but it was really wild.
That's huge. Well, congratulations on that. And
Thank
since
you.
I mentioned it, I did do a little bit of research and saw, and I don't know if you can speak to it or if it's complete, but maybe you can talk about it. Uh, you have done a short film called Still Mine.
Yes, we're almost locked on
Okay.
we locked on picture. We're still like figuring out the sound. Man,
Wow.
I've never done, my own project such as this. And there's so much that goes turns out there's so much that goes into it. And I'm so very excited. I cannot wait to share it with the world once it's done. But yeah, it's a very exciting, very personal story. And so to be able to write it and then be in it and be producing it is like a big deal.
Yeah, and you're wearing many hats, and I'm sure it is just unbelievably tough. So congratulations, and I'm glad that it's nearing fruition and
Thank
completion.
you.
I did some digging, speaking of short films, if you will, and being that I'm a YouTuber, I saw where you and several fellow improvisers have a channel called In Bed Together.
You
Is that
found it.
I found it. It was like I felt like Indiana Jones in the temple
Because it's
of.
not easy to find. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know
found it.
why.
No, I had to literally, I had to take a pickaxe and dig through the
What
internet.
was it? What did we do wrong? Was there a number in there? And that was like
Oh,
the problem. There's something wrong with what we called it because
you're asking the wrong person because if I knew how to cheat the algorithm,
that was so the gentleman in that group is my writing partner, Brendan.
okay,
So he's the one that I wrote those Wabbit cartoons with.
great.
And then Kate Duffy is a longtime friend of mine who, dear friend of mine who now lives in Oklahoma with her husband
Oh wow.
and creates movies and all that jazz. But
Uh-huh.
dear friend. But when we all moved to LA at, like around the same time. And we're like, we need to stay busy and do stuff. And
Mhm.
so we truly would meet. We would pitch a bunch of stuff and then run and gun and shoot. Like we pick a day and just shoot a bunch of stuff and then just started like releasing videos like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or it was such a wonderful like experiment in sort of like doing it and not worrying about things being too good or funny or whatever. It was like, just do it, get it done, and like make it happen. And it was so funny.
It was well.
I don't think we must have like 12 views. Like, it's so stupid. But some of those are good. Some
Well,
of
I'll link to it here
you.
on this episode so that my viewers can find it. I'll tell you my favorite sketch that I just laughed out loud was when you guys would do a parody of the intervention show.
Yeah, stupid. The chair. Did you catch the chair one where the
Love
like
the chair.
the
You
chair? I don't know why we thought that was so funny. Um, yeah. Oh God. I mean, they're not terrible.
they're not. No, I thought it was great. I was laughing. I'm like, this is great stuff.
Yeah.
So
So, like, our Women in Films, like Women Are Different in Films series,
right.
I think is a very hard hitting. Yeah, I'm so proud of those things. And again, if the visibility could be there, I do feel like someday, like we'll reap the benefits of those.
Yes, it'll happen. It'll
Yeah.
happen. So speaking of your peers in improv, you often promote on Instagram shows that you're hosting and troops that you play with, and I'm very LA adjacent, and I regret that I don't get down there to see more improv, etc. But tell me about who you commonly perform with, what venues, and specifically, tell me about
Heyday.
Heyday.
Heyday. Heyday is a long form improv group that I am a part of. We were put together as part of like when IO West still
Mhm.
existed out here.
Right.
So it's been a decade that we were put together and love that group. Anytime that you get to consistently play with a group of people for 10 years,
Mhm.
and we've had people who have had like moved out of state and life changes and whatnot, but there's still six of us that are performing regularly every other Monday at the West Side Comedy Theater in Santa Monica,
Mhm.
and once a month at a theater called Theater 68 in North Hollywood. But it's just great because we have the history with each other, but now I feel like a lot of us have like life, people married, babies, all this other stuff, and a bunch of us took clown class
Oh,
uh,
wonderful.
for a year last year. So like the life just sort of has a way of like moving you in a different direction when you're performing. So I think our shows have gotten sillier and weirder, but we're still very organic and
Something that I kind of gravitate toward is organic play, which I don't see a lot of here in Vegas. I'm always the one trying to force that upon my fellow players.
you're like trying to transition some scene.
Yeah,
They're like, what is
I
he
was
doing?
I was doing that a lot during a recent show, and everyone's like caught off guard.
That's a hard. I played with a group of people that were just like, I was just sitting in with them and
Yeah.
pulled a few of those moves because I'm like, this is just how we play with Heyday. And you pull a few of those and like you get the look like, what are you doing? And it's like, oh yeah, I see. I can stand here and talk too. I can do that.
So, talking about the mechanics of improv really quick. So, the long form format, the Herald, is it a secret or can you talk about how Heyday does the Herald?
The Herald.
The Herald!
The Herald. You really got. Do you know Karen Grachi? I'm gonna pitch.
I know this name. I mean, if you drop some names I may know of or
Okay.
have even probably met
I
them.
got to figure out a way to hook you up with Karen because she is now show running like an animated Superman show. Like
Oh,
she's
wonderful.
been writing an animation very consistently. She was Heyday's coach for a long time. Brilliant, brilliant woman, dear friend. But like she's got knowledge you'd want, I bet. Anyway, the Herald I think was her idea of trying to keep us busy. Like I think as a group we were getting a little tired of what we were doing, like just a stale in the way that we were doing the Herald. So she sort of like reconfigured it and made it like a vertical Herald.
Oh.
Um, And I would not even remember exactly how we did it, but it ended up being like, it involved a lot of like different elements. Like what I can remember is that there was a portion where we got a lot of like uh monologues, duologues in the middle of the piece. We were like having characters step out and do two different points of view monologues. There
Oh,
were moments where we were trying to like live in an activity where the activity change, like the activity stayed the same but the scenes changed.
right.
I don't really remember the exact like order of it now, but
Yeah.
it was something that she concocted to keep our brains like constantly working towards something.
Well, and the Herald itself is hard enough, but when you master it, you kind of, you're looking for opportunities to maybe play with the format that you guys.
Yeah, and our shows are, I think, of because we used to have the luxury at IO to
Yeah,
have an hour of time. Like our block of time was an hour, so our shows were 45 to 48 minutes.
right.
And now we're playing, at a place where we get 22 minutes
Oh
tops,
yeah.
so it's not something that we have the luxury of sort of exploring the entire thing. So you get like a truncated, fast, trippy version of what it used to be. Still fun,
Yes.
but different.
Well, thank you
It's
for
truncated. Yeah.
trying. It's not, hey, it's
Hey,
hey.
real. Yeah.
I do want to end quickly before we conclude. Something else that you do that I commissioned from you was
Oh my God. Maybe one of my earliest works.
really, because I
Yeah.
remember when you started marketing your talents on the interwebs, and I was like, oh, I have to have one. So this is Mabel, this is Big Boy.
Oh
Walk me
my
through
God.
your artistic process to create your
Well,
collages.
it's funny you say that. As I look over my shoulder, I just
Oh,
did a
fun.
piece for this is I wish I could explain. A friend of mine is directing his short film, and
Uh-huh.
I believe it involves like a school teacher who is an art teacher, and he was like, I'd love for your like one of your pieces to be the end, like this is his portrait that hangs or something.
Oh, neat.
And so I was like, yeah, I want to get back in, and so I whipped this up.
It's
Just
great.
kidding.
Oh,
I don't know if it's going to read on camera the way that they want it to, but we're going to see. What I do is basically get an image, and then I find colors in magazines, and then basically paint with paper
right.
onto the image to make it a
Well, and
thing.
it's an amazing likeness because I forgot because I forgot I sent you a picture and ta-da.
So funny.
And I love the backgrounds, but gosh, how long does it take you? I know the one you just showed was huge. Like maybe how long does it take to do this or one that's larger?
Um, it depends on like I can, if I get in the zone and really like sit with it, we're talking like 12 full hours that
Oh,
I could like sit there. And that's easy to do if you're like after work, it's like 6 to like midnight
sure. Understood.
that I'm just like doing stuff. Or if I like I have a piece that I've been working on for my friend Celeste, and that has been I've had it on my table for 3 months. And
Oh
I just
wow.
like every once in a while I'll just do a block or two, like a little put something on there. So it just depends on like what like this needed to be done fast because they're shooting this weekend. So it's like, all right, I'll do it as fast as I
Right.
can. So yeah, I think this one took me probably like 8 full hours.
I think it's beautiful and again, it's just a lovely keepsake. So, before we depart, I want you to share how my viewers, listeners can find you. What are your social media handles so they can go ahead. I'll just rattle
Find
them off.
me. Find me on the Instagram at Miss MISS Amanda Blake, or my art is at missamandablake.art.
Hmm.
Classic.
Yeah.
For all of your mosaicked needs. Yes, still doing. I haven't done many portraits. There was a time there though that I was like, I was rolling in like I constantly had like a steady stream of like pet portraits that I was doing for people. It was really a wild thing. And then I think I was like, okay, I need to regroup because it's a lot on the fingies.
Well, I'm sure it's probably gets like, yeah, you have to be very dexterous, etc. I have since gotten a new pet, so don't be surprised if I make
I would
another.
love to just send me a picture and I'll whip
Okay.
something up.
Okay, thank you. Well, this has been a pleasure. I don't want to
Fine.
take up any more of your time, but thank you for sharing us secrets about improv, etc., and your work in television as well, and your writing exploits. You peeled back the layers.
Oh, good.
We got a
Yeah,
peek behind the curtain.
I do. I want to leave everybody with let's not give up on improv. I feel like the listening, the connecting, the ensemble, the collaboration, all now more than ever. I feel like I do believe it could save us. I do believe in, in the climate that we're in right now. Like,
Mhm.
man, if everybody could take an improv class, if we could just get to Washington and
Yes.
give an improv workshop to go,
Yes. It would be mind blowing. It would change
maybe
minds.
maybe we could just reach one. Anyway,
Well, let's talk about it. I'm going to hit pause on the recording, and Amanda and I are going to talk about how we're going to take on the world. So thank you, everybody, for watching Netflix
thank
and
you,
film. It's
Phil.
been a great pleasure to have you. Thank you again, Amanda. And don't go anywhere.
Thank
I'm just
you.
going to stop the recording. And that's it for today's episode. Bye, everybody.
There
Bye.
were